I feel like so. The project. So all right. So I was furloughed from work last April, and while I was furloughed, I was. Are y'all familiar with ET, the hip hop preacher?
No, E.T. the
All
hip
right,
hop
don't worry about
preacher.
it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You might have some folks who see this and they be like, "Oh yeah, ET," but I mean, he's kind of known. I mean,
Not the dude who was with the long hair with his jacket open cussing.
It's the black dude with the baseball cap from Detroit. Who's like, when
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
succeed as hard as you
The
want to
motivational
breathe,
speaker
as
dude.
bad as you did. The motivational
He actually brought in
speaker.
what's the dude? Toby. He brought him on. He put
Yeah,
him on, right?
Toby Wigway.
Yeah, because he used to tour with him, whatever.
Wait, try Jesus, don't try me?
Yeah.
Oh, snap. Okay, I'm going to get into this dude.
He was actually under him or something like that, and he was like encouraging him to rap.
Yeah, so he kind of like mentored him up, and but so I was watching some of his stuff around that time, and a cousin of mine who I used to talk to back in UK re-linked up with me, and this is important because when I was in UK in 2006, I mean, Lee, you know, like at one point I was. I mean, Will may know too. Like, you know, I was a little, how can I put it? Adventurous. You know what I'm saying?
Good word, adventurous. Adventurous.
I was adventurous, and then I was very, very humbled after a point. And
well, I was at graduation.
After so around 2006, I was in a church and I was trying to find God, right? Because I went to Catholic schools my whole life, went to Catholic grade school, went to St. X, and at a certain point, I kind of like ran into a wall at college, and I was just kind of like, you know what, man, what's my purpose in life? Like, what exactly is it that I'm here to do? And around that time, I was into like UFO conspiracy and Bigfoot and all of that stuff. So then I was like, you know what, man, is this God thing real? Like, I was raised in the Baptist church, baptized at 28th Street Baptist Church, and I was like, I know the stories. I could answer, I aced all the quizzes. Like, I could, the Good Samaritan, I could tell you all of that stuff, but like, is it like the faith and all of that stuff? Is it really real? So long story short, I set out on this journey where I kind of like, as an experiment, and I joined this church and like totally just like submitted to it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to like Bible thump, I promise. I'm not trying to Bible thump, but it's just a part of the story, right? So I was like in it, trying to like find out like, is this God thing really real, right? And what happened right after I decided to join that church was I actually switched from an undeclared major to no. I was going on to my second semester as an art major. First, I was a business major. Then I was out of school for a semester. Then I came back undeclared. Then I switched over to art. So my second semester, when I had to go and sign up for my art courses, I sat down with this dude. His name was Arturo Sandoval. He's my first time meeting him, right? And he's a Hispanic dude. He was kind of famous locally, local artist. He's like in his 70s now. So I sit down. It's my first time meeting this dude, right? He's got Girl Scout cookies and Sprite. And he's like, hey, would you like some Girl Scout cookies? And I was like, kind of like weird, you know what I mean? I'm like, nah, I'm cool, but I'll take a Sprite though. So dude sits down, starts going over my courses with me and stuff. And then somehow the conversation just kind of went off and veered right. And he starts talking about God. Right. And I'm thinking this is kind of weird because I'm like, I just popped this question about like 5 months ago, you know what I'm saying? And started getting into the church. So I'm like kind of leaning in on all ears. So he goes on to tell me when he was struggling at some point in his life, he was up real late one night at like 3 a.m. And the type of artwork that he does is like silk screening, I think is what you call it. And so he like dyes fabrics and, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of like a fashion related type of trade. So he's in there and he's doing his work. And he said he looked up and he had asked God if that was going to be the trade that supported his family for his life. And he was like, you know how when you're up so late and you don't really know if you're like awake or you're sleeping? And I was kind of like, hey, bro, this is kind of weird. It's like sound like something Morpheus said on The Matrix, but I just went along with it. Like, like, yeah. So the next thing I know, this dude who's like in his 60s at the time, in a conference room with other teachers and students, like takes his glasses off and starts shaking and like breaks down in front of me. This grown man breaks down and starts crying in front of me. And I'm sitting here like, whoa, and I'm all ears. I'm like, what happened? What happened? And he's like, the most beautiful voice that I'd ever heard just responded and just calmly said, yes, it will. And I was like, okay, so what did it sound like? You know what I'm saying? Did it sound like a man? Did it sound like a woman? And he was like, I can't really describe it. It just sounded like an instrument. It was just the most beautiful sound that I'd ever heard. So there was that story, right? So then after that leads me to jump into the church. So I'm in the church searching for this experience, right? And I won't name the church, but Lee, if I told you the name, you would know. And if I told you some of the people who I followed into this church, you would know them too.
I probably would, yeah.
Yeah. There was a certain female that I followed into the church.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in this church, right? And it was like there was some cool people in the church. There was some cool families in the church. I kicked it with a handful of dudes, and these dudes were like real dudes. But there were some people in the church, man, that were doing the whole speaking in tongue thing, and it was weird. But I was in there trying to catch that vibe, and it never worked for me. Like it never worked. I saw people falling out left and right. Come to find out, they were just faking it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't really a real thing. So at this time,
the same place, the same girl?
Place, same girl. I saw the same girl do that. I was just kind of like, whoa, like, but granted, look, I was totally, when I say I totally bought into it, like, bro, I totally bought into it. Like, I'm trying to chase this thing. Like, my mom and my sister came up with me, and my older cousin came and sat in the service. And they sitting there, and it's the end of the service where they call everybody to the altar, and they did this thing where they kick their shoes off, and everybody runs up to the altar, and they just kind of like bow and pray at the altar.
Oh yeah, I definitely know what it is now. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You definitely know. Yeah.
I know you.
So my mom and my sister and my cousin. This is another thing they joke on me about to this day. Next thing they know, they see me to the left of them, and then the next thing they know, they look over, and it's just my shoes sitting there, and they don't know where I went. But I'm up at the altar, you know what I'm saying, bound down, because I was really chasing this thing, you know, and it's funny now because I wouldn't do that nowadays. But anyways, so my cousin calls me, my older cousin calls me, and my older cousin, he's been through some stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like he's been in the streets, he moved down to Texas, and like he's really been through some stuff. So he ends up hitting me up around that time when he was down in Texas, and he was real heavy in the church. And I was telling him, like, about my experience, man. I'm trying to chase God, you know what I'm saying? Trying to find out if this thing is real. So he starts discipling me, right? Gave me a couple of pointers, told me, you know what, man, you need to crack that Bible open. You doing everything, we going out in neighborhoods, we witnessing to people, like we coming around the corner in neighborhoods, people see us on porches and they like scattering like roaches, like don't nobody want us to come up to them trying to preach to them, nothing like that. I'm doing all that, right? So then I start reading my Bible, and like, I want to say a month or two in, one night at my bedside, read my Bible. And I think it was like Matthew 6:26 that I was reading, and it hit me. And I'm kind of getting long-winded. I can skip over past this if y'all want me to, or I can get into the details if y'all want. I don't know, this is y'all show. Y'all let me know.
We're here now.
Yeah, we here.
Oh, we're here now.
I'm curious.
Now.
I know. I love the Lord, because anyone know me, I love the Lord anyway. So this is I'm cool.
Okay. So I'm saying, like Lee, I figured, because I ain't never shared this with you, bro. I haven't shared this with a lot of people. All right, so I'm reading Matthew 6:26, and that verse is kind of like just going on top of the head, like Jesus is basically talking to somebody, and he's basically saying, don't worry, you know what I'm saying? Like, look at the birds, look at the insects, they go to and fro. You don't see them worrying about stocking up food. putting food away, putting things away, but yet they're provided for. Like they have everything they need. And you're a human being. Like, aren't you more valuable than them? You know what I'm saying? So I read this at my bedside, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. And then, I was just reading before I went to sleep and got up, went to class the next day. And I read that, and I sit back off my bed, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm like, wow. Like, man, that's really deep. Like, wow. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm sitting back, and I get like this feeling of like a butterfly in my stomach, right? Dead serious. Like, on my soul, I start getting this butterfly feeling in my stomach, and I'm sitting here processing this verse that I just read, and then it all of a sudden I notice like this feeling feels like a balloon that's like blowing up, and it's like stretching out, and it's just expanding, like it won't stop. And the next thing I know, I'm like balled up in the fetal position, and my eyes are closed shut, and I'm like in a fetal position, and it felt like I had like a low light in my room, like a lamp, but when my eyes were closed, it felt like somebody had like there was a bright light, like somebody had turned the light on, not like the sun and not like, but like somebody had turned the light on in the room, and like the light was shining in my eye. But I'm sitting here, and it like completely overwhelmed me. I cuffed my mouth because I felt like I was gonna start screaming at the top of my lungs. And I just say, okay. Like, I got it. Like, I got it. Like, I asked that question. Now I know. Like, I'm cool. And I kid you not, the very moment I said that, the sensation and I had the most peaceful feeling that I had ever had before in my life, right? So then I get up, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, wow, like this, wow, and I'm trying to process this thing, right? So many people have their own experiences. That was mine. After that, I was working at the bowling alley. I went to church one morning, man, and I was up, like, when I worked at the bowling alley, I worked a midnight shift. I made $5 an hour. I was the college student, and they just dumped all the responsibility. Y'all know how it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but for that church, they wanted us to go to Bible study at like 9 o'clock in the morning and stay there until the actual service started at like 11:30. And then we'd be in service from like 11:30 to like 2:30. Then people would be hanging around talking about fried chicken and where they're going to go and get this and that and the third. You finally left at 3:30. But they wanted us to dress up. You know what I'm saying? And slacks and button ups and stuff. And that was one particular morning. I'm like, bro, I'm tired. I'm just going to throw on some fresh Rockaware jeans, you know what I'm saying? Kind of telling our age. I was rocking Rockaware back then.
Take us back.
Yeah, some Rockaware jeans,
John, all that.
Yeah. A little like fleece jacket, and came in, and I'll never forget, the pastor was calling people out for not dressing up that morning. And they were like, some people think they too important to dress up for God. And, and I'm sitting like dead center in front of her. And there were some other people around the church who dressed down. But after that, I was like, no, man, I'm cool, bro. Like, I kind of chucked the deuces and walked out. I was like, my experiment's done. Like, I came in here for my experience. Turns out I had it at my bedside reading the Bible. So anyways, so fast forward to last year, I'm furloughed. That same cousin who I was talking with, who was guiding me back then, hits me up last April. And I'm like, you know what, man, I've been outside the church trying to get back in it. You know what I'm saying? When I was in the church, things were flowing right. You know what I'm saying? I was killing it on all fronts. You know what I'm saying? Grades were tight. You know what I'm saying? Everything was smooth. Everything was, and I feel like things are getting kind of rocky. I need to get back to it so I can tighten up, be straight with the Lord again. So he's like, okay, cool. Then we hook back up. He starts to cycle with me. Long story short, I go from trying to break into the animation industry and working at Baptist Health full time to Johnny stepping in, and me and Johnny reuniting after like 10 years. And he's like, bro, I got this thing that I'm trying to put together. I need a team I'm trying to put together. I'm trying to start this firm. I've been searching for you for 10 years, bro. And I finally got you. I want to bring you on as an artist to be the art lead at this thing, and and bada boom. And it just seemed like since I reconnected with my cousin and we started discipling and everything, that like over time in the span of 8 months, these things started falling into place where I was able to step away from my day job, and now I'm doing this thing full time. So yeah, like I want to say first and foremost, man, God is great. Like God is great. Like it's real. Like it's really, really real. I'm not trying to Bible thump nobody, but the stuff is real. And the project is about this second stint of time that I spent with my cousin. So my cousin was teaching me scripture, and he was breaking it down in a level that I didn't think about before, right? Like I had my experience way so far back, but I didn't have like the context. You know what I'm saying? I just knew that this thing happened. I didn't understand none of the scripture deep enough or anything around any of that. But what he was teaching me was the context. You know what I'm saying? Why the books were written, who wrote the books, the promises and the covenants and all of that stuff. So as I'm breaking this stuff down, I just get a wild hair up my butt, man, and I'm like, I didn't know the scripture this deeply, and I don't know if many people know about this stuff. I don't know if people realize that for every commandment that there's a promise, that there's a blessing. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if people realize that Satan was once upon a time the top angel in heaven. Like he was the head honcho, and then he crossed the line, he got kicked out. Like people don't know this stuff, you know what I'm saying? But we got origin stories all across the board. And I'm like, and I just had an idea one day, like, man, you know what? As excited as I get when I see the opening of an Avengers movie and you see Hulk and Thor and all of these cats coming in and this and that, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be dope to see biblical characters doing that same thing? You know what I'm saying? Like
the Prince of Egypt, like the Prince of Egypt. Like
the Prince of Egypt, right? And so that's a great movie. But that led me to, you know, and then I got that idea, and then boom, 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 everything else started falling into place. And then Johnny came through and had a situation that was pretty much laid out. And I was just like, bro, I couldn't have planned this on my best day. I could not have planned this. It just all kind of happened this way. So, so essentially that story, and I'm sorry to bug y'all down, but that story is what the project is all about.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? I can't give details because I signed a contract, you know what I'm saying? But that's essentially what it is. And it's like, I decided, you know, okay, like I like listening to Jay-Z and stuff, but you know, I listen to Lecrae, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't judge anybody from, you know what I'm saying, listening to secular music or nothing like that. Like there ain't nothing wrong with it. You know what I'm saying? The last church I was part of back in 2006, they were like, I don't watch Harry Potter. I don't do none of this, that, you know, it was a little crazy. But all I'm saying,
there's a balance.
There's a balance, bro. There's a balance because at the end of the day, like what I know now that I didn't know back then, it was like, man, Jesus was out rocketing with those people. You know what I'm saying? He was in the whorehouses. He was in the slums. He was with.
He wasn't in mansions and castles. He wasn't in mansions and castles.
No, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, he wasn't on no college campus with a megaphone shouting to people.
Bro, oh my God. You know let me start on that, bro. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so I just like at one point I went from trying to actually break into the animation industry because I know some people who work in the industry, you know what I mean? And who could probably link me up with jobs and stuff. But I was like, nah, man, like I actually want to turn everything over to the kingdom agenda. You know what I'm saying? Spreading the gospel, like breaking it down, just giving people the information that I didn't know about before. And
I'll be seeing your Instagram.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's why. I mean, if you go back and you look at my Instagram account, at one point you don't see Batman, Superman, Spider-Man art. Like I still want to draw it, but I'm like, nah, bro, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this David and Goliath. I'm gonna do this Moses and stuff like that. And I still might do a Superman or Spider-Man, but I gotta I'm still trying to find the balance. You know what I'm saying? And
shout out to the melanation on your characters, the accuracy. Shout out.
Yeah,
The accuracy.
That's the other thing.
Can we get into that right now?
That's the other thing. That's the other thing, man. It's like I want to be stone absolutely accurate. Jesus was raised in Africa, man. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have no perm and no thin lips and he wasn't Caesar Augustus' son, bro. Like, come on.
Oh,
man.
funny story. Someone online shared something with me. The image, that particular image, is actually Caesar Borgia. It's Caesar Borgia. That image is not. Yeah, that image is like, when you look at it, it's like literally looking at someone. It's like looking at a painting, and then someone came and like put changes on it, and was like, I'm gonna take this same face and make little changes and say this is the image. Caesar Borgia, that's the image. Very incorrect. Very incorrect.
Oh, hi. I'm glad you could stop by. I was just about to read a story. Would you like to hear it? It's about a little boy who sees his shadow for the first time. Great, pull up a chair and let's get started. The little boy and his shadow. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who for the first time saw his shadow grow. He did not really know it had been there all along. He did not even know that it followed him around. But on this day, the sun was bright, and it was time for him to play. So out he went with his favorite toys to walk along the way. At first he did not notice his shadow in the light, but then it seemed his shadow crossed his line of sight. And with a smile, he saw it there, lying on the ground, following him everywhere when he moved around. Upon the sidewalk.
Hey, buddy, stay off the street now.
Upon the house.
Vincent, I can't see you, pal. Can you come over here?
Even on the car.
Hey, buddy, come on over here. I can't see you.
And he stood upon the steps. That was quite bizarre.
That's your shadow, buddy. Everybody's got a shadow.
But the best thing was the sun, whose light was everywhere, who shined upon the ground and made his friend appear. The sun could make him tall or short, and also far and near. The sun could do most anything. With his shadow he did cheer. And so for this little boy knew for sure that day, as long as the sun shined bright above, he'd have a friend who'd play.